Update. Am I the a-hole for planning on ending our relationship because he acts like his daughter is heiress to my things? This is an update to the story posted yesterday. Link in the description. We formally broke up today, and he made it very difficult to focus on our conversation. He interrupted me every 5 seconds and was in denial for almost half of it. I asked to meet at a small restaurant, public place strategy, to avoid any type of drama. I tried to be respectful, but definitely wanted to bring up my uneasiness and feelings about his behavior. He tried to brush it off at first, but when I insisted, he evaded the subject. I told him what he already knows. My children are my priority as a sole provider, and I want to ensure that they have their needs covered. There were some comments on my other post that I had thought about but hadn't verbalized, like, what would he leave my kids? Or what's his plan for his own kid? I know he doesn't have much, but that's no excuse. When I established the comparison between what he wanted for his kid versus what he would give to mine, his face changed, like I was greedy and he was insulted. He said my kids don't have a dad and that he can provide a paternal figure. This triggered me so much that I had to try and keep my volume in check. My thought is that being there like a piece of furniture in exchange for financial benefits for his own kid is acceptable to him. I would have loved for my kids to have a decent dad, but that's just not in the cards. And right now, I'm better off alone than with Ben. I was so angry that he kept asking me to calm down. He said he's leaving his daughter with good knowledge on life in general because there are things that only he can offer since her mom is too secular, whatever that means, and I didn't ask him. I said that we needed to break up, and he immediately got upset and left our table. I thought he was gone, but he came back later and claimed he only went to use the restroom. I told him that I can't share any part of my life with him after he behaved like a gold digger, and that even if I were able to get past this, I would never even consider getting back together because his intentions are entitled and dishonest. All in all, I'm just glad that we weren't alone. He has high blood pressure issues. Real, I've seen the medication. And sometimes I've suspected some types of mental health issues, going from 0 to 100 over things that seemed incongruent. He said he was truly sorry if he offended me and said that he felt tricked and betrayed. That breaks are meant for introspection and to seek improvement, not to abandon a relationship. That my actions will have an impact on his daughter because she really likes me. I offered to have a last call or text with her if he agreed, but his answer was, "No, F you don't get to say anything to her." He said that I'm caught up in my new mainstream life. Whatever that means, it's freaking offensive considering that I've worked for my financial stability after a few years of things being great. He told me to go suck on my colleagues' junks, but immediately apologized. I told him I'm not surprised at his behavior, since it shows me that he seems to think sex can solve anything. I also said that since he was being gross and vulgar, I'm learning just now that men like him are unfuckable, homosexual, handout seekers, and insincere. And that I will never date someone who is not financially stable ever again, because this is a huge lesson. I wish that I could say that I had left him sitting alone at the table, but he left first. When I was about to get my handbag to pay for my food, he rushed to get his backpack and walked off really quick. I blocked him everywhere, but I already changed my locks. He never had a key, nor did he stay over, but I'm just being cautious. He called one of our friends in common to vent about me, and she ended up angry with him because he was very insistent that I had mistreated him, and she told him that she needed to hear my side of the story. She and I had a long conversation, and she told me that she can't blame me because our group of friends had been noticing the imbalance in our relationship and how he seemed comfortable, including himself in conversations about business and success when, in the 16 years that she's known him, he's never gotten anything done. So that's my update. I also blocked him on social media and messaging apps. Thank you for the update. Secular usually means not religious. I'm guessing that based on the rest of the picture you've painted of this man, that his ex doesn't respect his patriarchal rights to tell her her own business and manage her own finances. He sounds like a manipulative partner at best. I don't think you would have ever wanted him as a father figure to your sons. Thanks for the clarification. OP's ex really seemed to think he was entitled to her life, her money, and her kids' future. Like it was part of some twisted inheritance plan. And is Sackler being code for not under my control? Please. That man wasn't looking for a partner. He was out here shopping for a sponsor with a side of authority. Good riddance. OP didn't just dodge a bullet. She dodged an entire financial and emotional demolition team. Definitely dodged a massive bullet. This guy was clearly trying to use you as his retirement plan and a financial support system for his daughter while offering nothing but paternal figure BS in return. His explosion when confronted shows his true colors. The vulgar comments, emotional manipulation about his daughter, and weird accusations about your mainstream life are classic tactics of someone who got caught being predatory. Love that you stood your ground and called out his hobosexual behavior. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. His behavior really screamed desperation and entitlement. It's telling that he tried to guilt trip you with his daughter instead of taking responsibility. You deserve someone who respects your boundaries and values. Here's to moving on and finding better. Next story. Am I the a-hole for no longer wanting to give a house to my sister? My portion of inheritance. A few years ago, our mom passed away unexpectedly, and she didn't have a will, so splitting the assets has been more of a headache than any of us anticipated. Most of us, multiple siblings involved, believe we need to prioritize relationships with each other because we understand the long-term damage that feuding over material things after someone's death can bring to families. Our mom loved her house and spent her time turning it into a dream home before her death. Some didn't want it sold off. It was then proposed that one of our sisters, who has young children, be given the house because she was looking at travel trailers for housing, and it would be a long-term, affordable, and stable home. At that time, the sale of the house to her and her husband wasn't an option because they couldn't get approved for a loan. They were told they needed to prepare themselves to get a loan for the house in case the loan wasn't assumable. And unfortunately, they didn't do that, so to this day they still wouldn't qualify to buy it. We agreed on a nice idea, to each give the gift of our own inheritance, with an unspoken understanding that they'd plan on staying there long-term. While we figured out the legal stuff, they moved in and paid the mortgage until things were made official. Unfortunately, shortly after moving in, our sister's husband would tell friends and his family that his plan was to sell the house within the next 2 years or rent it out and move. This understandably caused upset because it felt like he was looking at an opportunity to profit, not seeking long-term stability. We proposed a stipulation stating that they'd have to reside in the home for 5 years before it would be transferred solely to them, as proof that they were serious about making it their home. But her husband got really upset and wouldn't hear us out. We asked our sister what their plan was, and she said it depended on her husband's work situation, that moving wasn't off the table or fully on it, but she felt 2 years was long enough to consider it long-term. With all of this coming to light, a few of the siblings no longer wanted to sign because they didn't feel it would be fair to end up with none of the equity from a short-term living situation. We sought acknowledgement that he understood this was a huge gift and sacrifice of our inheritances, hoping he would show some gratitude so we could feel good about signing and move on, but he was not receptive. He feels that because he's done some work on the house and has paid the mortgage, it is his. It no longer feels wise to hand over my portion heedlessly, not because of the money, but because of the morality and ethics of it all. With the new information about their plans to possibly sell the property after only a short time, the sense of entitlement, and the lack of acknowledgement for how big of a gift this really is. Am I the a-hole for no longer wanting to give away my portion of the inheritance? Not the a-hole. If sis can't buy it, then she doesn't get the profits from selling it. I get not wanting to sell it to keep it in your family, but why give it to just one sibling? They're already thinking about the money in their pockets after selling their gift house. Nope. We wanted them to own the house, grow as a family, and we didn't feel it would be right to have any sense of entitlement to the equity if they were there long-term, since they were paying and caring for it. It was the plans of selling quickly and profiting off of our generosity that put a sour taste on our tongues. Most of my siblings are extremely giving, humble people without a greedy bone in their body. At the time, it felt right to send them off into life with a leg up, and we could sleep well knowing our nieces were in a beautiful home. It may have felt right at the time, but they have shown their true colors. Sell the house and take your rightful inheritance. I agree. Sell the house. Anne's sister and a-hole brother-in-law will get their portion to do with what they will. They're not aligned with OP's values. Not the a-hole. I'm honestly not understanding the original decision anyway. Even if the sister and brother-in-law had agreed to live there for 5 years, it seems mad to me that all the siblings would gift their entire inheritance, just so the property stays in the family for 5 more years. If it's really non-negotiable that the property can't be sold straight away, can the house not stay owned by all siblings, and the sister and brother-in-law just live there at a rent that covers the mortgage? At that point, it was everyone just wanting to do a nice thing in our mom's memory, an act of love and an equitable choice to help our sister. As of now, the house is owned by all of us and will remain that way until the day comes when nobody lives in it, and nobody wants to have to cover the mortgage. I don't think we will collectively agree to sign it over to my sister and her husband anymore. Isn't it funny how you wanted to avoid the type of squabble that happens between selfish siblings by being generous, and you still end up in a squabble? I think you're taking the right step. Next story. Am I the a-hole for taking my grandparents' house? I am 26 female. My grandparents are both 68. My maternal grandparents moved from England to Brooklyn, New York in the 80s and were lucky enough to afford a 5-bedroom townhouse, which they shared with my mom, my aunt, and my uncle. They were young parents, so there was an age gap between my mom and her siblings. For the majority of their early years in America, my grandparents just shared the house with my mom. My mom had me in her teens, so we lived in that house until I was about 10 when she got her own place. We still lived in Brooklyn, and luckily due to what my mom studied, she secured a well-paid career. After receiving an inheritance, she basically managed to buy the house outright. Fast forward to 2015. My mom died suddenly, and I inherited the house along with a substantial amount of money and my own family inheritance, which my grandparents had set up for me and my 4 cousins. The house was a good enough size for me and my then boyfriend. We welcomed a daughter a few months later and later got married. Last year, my husband and I decided to try again for a baby, and I got pregnant quite quickly. We learned we were having twins, and despite the house being 3 bedrooms, we agreed it was too small to raise 3 kids in. Now, house prices in New York are insane anyway, but with the sale of the house and using some of the money I received from the inheritance, we were in a position where we could luckily either buy a 4-bedroom property outright or at least put a large deposit down to lower mortgage costs. Well, it turned out my grandparents were looking to downsize, and I don't know how this came up, but they suggested I could take their house and they could take mine, and I just pay them the difference in what their house is worth. It would be a couple $100,000, but my husband and I had the money. We had a lot of discussions, met with lawyers, and eventually came to an agreement. I'm currently 7 months pregnant, and the sale was finalized. We've all started preparing to move, and it's caused a lot of ill feeling in my family. All my cousins have branded me an a-hole for taking advantage of our grandparents. My grandparents have responded by saying it was their idea, that my husband and I paid them for the property, and that nobody was taken advantage of. My hormones are all over the place, and it's stressing me out, as I don't know if I'm in the wrong or not. Edit. I should add that even if my grandparents kept the house, my aunt and uncle would have received it as an inheritance, as they're my grandparents' children. My cousins would have just received money, and probably some heirlooms or something. Not the a-hole. You wanted a bigger place and they wanted a smaller place. You even paid them the difference in what your houses are worth. It's win-win for everyone, and your cousins just sound jealous, to be honest. Yeah, I'm having a hard time understanding how OP is taking advantage of the grandparents in any way. Jealousy is the only explanation in my eyes, not the a-hole. They're mad because now none of them can sell it once the grandparents kick the bucket. Not the a-hole. They are probably mad that the house that will eventually be up for inheritance won't be worth as much as the one you have bought off your grandparents. Not the a-hole. I'm guessing that's one of the reasons you had lawyers involved, besides the complicated paperwork. They would be there to protect everyone's best interests. Their lawyer wouldn't let them be taken advantage of. I think your family members are more upset that this huge asset was taken out of their very long way off inheritance. If it makes you feel any better, I'm sure your grandparents are happy this house is still in the family and being put to good use while still enjoying money from the sale. It's not like we didn't trust each other. My husband and I are co-owners, but I was the one pretty much fronting the majority of the purchase, and it's a lot of money, so I wanted to be protected. I also have never purchased property before, so lawyers was the best way to go. Not the a-hole. I hope you guys enjoy the new home and congrats on the babies. I have fond memories growing up in it, and the fact I own it now warms my heart. And thank you, having another girl and a little boy. Last story. Am I the a-hole for wanting to back out of doing my sister-in-law a favor cause I don't like that she installed cameras to be on a safe side? My wife used to get our niece ready and take her to daycare every Friday since she was off and her sister had to be at work by 6:30 and daycare did not open until 7. My wife's work schedule changed and she could no longer do it, so I offered to change my schedule around to start work at 10. We have been doing this for around 4 months. My sister-in-law has voiced no concerns, and when she calls, I always answer. We recently found out she installed cameras in her house. When my wife brought it up, she told her, "You never know." I'll be honest, I was taken aback because she has had no complaints in the past, but now she wants to have cameras because you never know? My wife did ask her sister if I had done anything that made her concerned or worried. She said no, but that it was a safety issue. Once again, she told my wife, "You never know." At this point, I told my wife I don't want to go into her house. I don't feel comfortable being in a home or around her daughter if she's that concerned. My wife agrees it is weird, also considering I have known her sister for over 16 years. Others think I am blowing it out of proportion, but I don't like how she assumes the worst of me just because I am male. She told my wife she had no concerns when she was the one doing it. Are you sure the camera was installed specifically to monitor you or for general security? If it is just for you, then check out the team memo that went out yesterday afternoon. It turns out that your schedule has changed and you will no longer be able to start work at 10 o'clock. Yeah, I'd be getting an email from my boss in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 bing, saying I need to go back to coming in at 8 a.m. starting tomorrow. You never know some things, but I know that after that stunt, I'm permanently retired from entering my sister's house, and she can find someone else to provide free childcare. Not the a-hole. She can keep her "you never know" and switch her hours around. She is waiting for you two to mess up and to destroy your family. Not the a-hole. You stepped up to help, and she repaid you with suspicion. If she doesn't trust you, she can find someone else.